Serrano.
I'm Scott Jones. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And we got all of our great guests. Lynn, who do we have with us today?
Barry Selby and Scott Two Hipster, $1 trillion man, Schilling. And then we got Rex Sykes from RexSykes.com. And you guys don't forget to click share to your pages.
Already done.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you guys got jobs to do. You don't just get to show up.
Yeah.
You got shit to do.
You know, I want to just say this. I mean, when I say $2 million man here, look at this guy. Look at this guy here. Look at how handsome he is. Man, he's just looking really good. Look at that. Hey, Scott, you want to share that really quick?
Scott, you're keeping some good company there, too.
Oh, man.
Some great company. I had the opportunity to be out with, attending the Life Surge event this weekend in Oklahoma City. And, man, you talk about walking into a building and leaving riding high. Just the spirit that was in there, the hope and inspiration that was shared, just the lifting people up was so cool, so awesome. Just really excited about that the event that it was, and some of the things that are going on that to be determined and shared later. Yeah,
and Jonesy, I bring that up because I think in our topic today, I think Scott's a testament. Hipster is a testament to this. So I look forward to how he shares on building trust and relationship, both business and personal, because it ties into him being with these amazing people like this. So what a beautiful picture that is. It just you're in your elements, Hipster, and I'm just privileged and happy to have a front row to see that.
Thank you. A lot of fun. I'm blessed to know some really cool people like you guys.
Well, thank you.
Hey, there you go. We were trying to remember the name of the gentleman you were just pictured with the without the arms and the legs.
Nick Vujicic.
I'm sorry.
Nick Vujicic. Vujicic.
Void the itch. Yeah. Okay.
What is it?
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Let me tell you, he has been in front of 1 billion people.
Yes.
Physically in front of, on stage. And it's when he says, and he's funny as can be, he says, sometimes I get out here and my palms start sweating. And he goes, I just don't know what to do. And, it's just it's absolutely hilarious.
And
he goes, sometimes you just have to jump for joy, and all of a sudden he'll jump on the table he's on. He is such a great guy, number one, and he just has such a heart to serve people. It's just amazing. It's so cool. Yeah, I'm honored to call him friend.
Absolutely.
And our friend Flo's watching.
Oh, excellent! Hey, Flo.
Hey, Flo, we love you.
I've seen him, Nick. I've seen some of his videos and some of his other stuff that he's done, and you can't help but look at that and say, why do I put limitations on myself when I look at somebody who doesn't? And it's just an amazing thing. Kind of like a grim reminder of, well, I'm sitting on my ass doing nothing. There's a whole world out there that I could do anything. So that's really cool. Great guy.
That's what, I don't care who you are. You've got to keep on going and learning and exposing yourself to that. Yeah. There are guys that shared that I've heard speak many, many times, or shared the stage with them, but there's always something new in their talk. There's always something that just happened in society that they respond to, or whatever the case might be. It's so amazing. And so, I came away with a notebook full of notes. So,
yeah. It's just a reminder, giants are rarely taller than the people that they're around. Giants are giants. So that's incredible stuff. What we brought up today was building trust in relationships, both business and personal. But building trust is building trust. And one of the reasons I brought that up is something that's come up recently with some people I'm working with and some things that I've had to do in the past. where always thought building trust was an outward thing about convincing people to trust me and manipulating people to trust me, and if I do this, they'll trust me. And what I came to understand was that building trust is an inside job, because for me to have people trust me, I must myself become trustworthy. And one thing I'll tell you, one thing that's a recurrence in somebody's life who has lived in life as an addict or an alcoholic or even with any kind of addictions or proclivities of a bad nature, is that we don't trust ourselves. So the whole time we're saying, hey, believe in me, we don't believe in ourselves. So we are not trustworthy to ourselves. So there's like 5 things that like pillars that I have to work on to be able to build trust with others. And none of it has to do with them. It all has to do with me. It's to work on myself first and foremost, so I can become a trustworthy person. I have to be consistent in my routines and in what I do. Inconsistency does not build trust. I have to do the right thing. I don't get to choose I'm going to do the right thing today and then I'm going to do the wrong thing when people aren't looking. I'm going to just do the right. I think what was that Mark Twain, who says one should always do the right thing when others are watching, but to actually do the right thing when it's presented. So work on myself, be consistent, do the right thing. Don't ask or seek praise for everything that I do, because then that's saying, hey, look at me and you should believe in me. It has to be the inside, and be impeccable with your word, which is obviously kind of the end result of all of those things. Once I become trustworthy, then my word does become impeccable because I believe in myself. So I really just kind of wanted to point that out. A lot of people out there are always on TV. They're out there, they're selling themselves, or they're even in their personal relationships, or trying to build this trust me and believe in me persona around them. But it's an outside job. And whenever it's an outside job, that's called a con. That's called a manipulation. So it has to be done from the inside. It's something that I've learned, and I just wanted to share with people and see what you guys thought of that, or your own experiences with building trust in your lives, and what that's meant to you and what you've had to do that. So the floor is open, gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here tonight. You guys are all just such great people. Thank you for being here. The floor is open.
Well, then I'll jump in.
All right.
I mean, the old saying that he who hesitates waits. So, so I love what you said. I think that it's so true, and I don't think we really have to go much further because it is an inside job. I have Rex's rules in my programs, my workshops, and there's a few of them. One, to be for other people to trust you, you must be trustworthy. So I'm right in sync, right alignment with you. And the other one is go first, and I'll explain that in a second. But the point is that, yeah, you need to be transparent. You need to walk your talk and talk your walk. You can't do one thing and say another, or say the other thing. For people to trust you, you have to demonstrate that you are worthy of their trust, and that's what most people don't think. In the NLP community, for example, there's been for decades, this whole thing of secret manipulation and influence and all this kind of, covert kind of things. Back in 1987, it might have been, I may have presented the very first, and I'm not sure, but I may have presented the very first workshop in a conference, an NLP conference. I don't remember where we were, Indiana or Canada or somewhere. On conversational hypnosis, by saying, whenever we're speaking, it's hypnotic. And there are things you can do in order to help people move along hypnotically in a positive way. So if, I describe a wonderful vacation and you go, wow, I'd like to take a wonderful vacation, I influenced you. So it's also important to understand that if you're in business, there's the word manipulate. It's been considered a bad thing. If you manipulate the books, it's a bad thing. If you manipulate people, it's a bad thing. But manipulate means to move from one place to another. If a client comes to you and says, I want to move my business from here to there, and you don't manipulate in some way that they move from there to there or help them do that, then you're not worthy of being trusted either. So you have to do what you claim that you can do. And when I always put it this way, they need to know that their interests are in your heart, that you're working on their behalf, and you're manipulating them to be better. By that, you're not manipulating them to con them or to take things from them. You're helping them to move forward, and take action steps. And you can do that through your language and through your actions and through your behaviors and through your business and through whatever way. But I have a rule called go first, which means whatever you want from another person, you give it first. If you want their attention, you give your attention. You want them to listen, you listen first. You want their respect, you give their respect. If you want their money, you give them money first, or you give them value that exceeds the value that they're going to pay for it. And you demonstrate repeatedly that you are a person of integrity and that you walk your talk, and that you're not just talking it, but you're actually capable of doing it, and you can demonstrate that. And it's not about subliminal influence and getting people to do things against their wishes, because that's out there. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff out there, ninja tactics for this, and dark alley secrets for that, and never lose an argument, and always win in a conversation, and always get your way. Well, if they're not winning, you're not winning, because you might walk away with their goods, but you're not winning. And so we now talk about win, win, and win. Everybody wins all the way around. So if that's where you are, if that's what you're about, with the way you said, be impeccable, keep your word, be consistent, those kinds of, if you walk that and you talk that and you talk that and you walk that, you can demonstrate it and you can add value to people. You develop trust through the relationship. You don't, because you're, and that's what Barry can give more talk about the relationship. But the point is it's about relating with other people and letting them know who you are and getting to know who they are, so you can meet. And if you have something of value to give them, then you can give it to them. If you have nothing of value to give them, refer them to someone who does.
Absolutely.
Well said.
I like that.
You're awesome. And you see, he did go first.
I dove in there. I grabbed that bull by the tail and I faced the situation.
He had to go first.
The horns. No, what?
He only has 20 minutes out in the prison yard to talk to us before they put him back in the cell.
He's really, that's a brick wall, really, people.
It's a real brick wall. Yeah.
You might get a few more minutes for good behavior, but maybe not.
That's true.
That's true. I got the warden in my pocket.
Barry, what are your thoughts on all of this, buddy?
Well, first of all, I'll say thank you, for Rex, for putting so many good things in place, because frankly, that is such a foundational piece. Walking your talk and being a person of your word is kind of what it comes down to a lot of ways. You earn trust by demonstrating you're trustworthy. That's the whole thing. And I learned this a long time ago. I've talked about it on the show before about keeping your agreements, because one of the biggest ways you lose trust is if you break your agreements with them. Being in integrity is like being in that alignment, being that oneness. And frankly, if you don't know how to keep agreements in the first place, you better learn fast if you want to build trust. And in relationship, well, it's had romantic relationship, business relationship, friendship, any relationship. If people don't trust what you say, there's no way out of it unless you start building reliability in what you say is what you do, and what you say is what you mean, and you keep your agreements. So if you say you're going to be at 5 o'clock and then you always get there at 5:30, maybe there's going to be a little latitude in there, but there may be also a lack of trust, because they can't depend upon you to be there when you said you're going to be there. So if you know, for example, that you're never going to be on time, move your time back a bit. Either leave earlier to be there on time you say agreed to, or say, I'm going to be there at 5. No, I'll be there at 5:30. That way you stay in integrity. So it's not about you got to be really hard on yourself. It's about making your life match what your words are. And in relationships, especially, one of the biggest problems in relationships that causes a lack of trust is when one person betrays trust on the other, whether that's by cheating on them, which is one extreme, or just simply not stepping up and being the person thought they were going to be in the first place. So being in integrity, staying true to your word, meaning what you say and saying what you mean, those sort of things. And it sounds so simple. One of those things that comes up a lot of times in relationships romantically is people stuff their feelings and don't tell the truth. So they don't tell the person they're upset with why they're upset. They just, they sort of tense their shoulders and put on a strained face and pretend everything's okay. The most dangerous word in relationship is fine. It's a
Oh,
band-aid. It's a band-aid for a multitude of sins. So basically, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you've got to be willing to tell them the raw truth, even when you're scared that it might upset them. Because if you carry it inside as a false presentation, they will lose trust in you anyway. So having honest communication, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult, is the way through to be in a place where you can trust each other.
I agree, and I can't tell you how many nights I spent sleeping in a car after the conversation started with "I'm fine." Really.
Yeah, silence can be deadly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
So can opening your mouth.
Indeed.
But
That's true. But Barry, I wanted to ask you. I mean, with keeping your word and stuff, do you find, or and in my experiences, I found it with myself and with other people I've worked with, if you can't keep your word to yourself, it's never possible to keep your word out there with other people, because you've got to establish that first inside. Where when I say something, it means something. But if I'm constantly letting myself down and crossing my own lines and cutting out my own legs, or cheating on my own morals, or whatever it might be, when I put my word out there, I don't even have faith in what I'm saying. So it has to be an inside job first, whether you're in a relationship or not.
Absolutely.
I can't be faithful to you until I'm faithful to my own feelings, thoughts, and everything else. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had my own self-esteem decrease because I told myself I'd do something and I didn't do it more than one time. A number of times. I mean, how many people said, January 1st, you're going to go to the gym every day for the next 6 months and eat healthy and everything else, and then January 3rd, you've stopped doing all of it. We all do things sometimes where we make promises we don't keep with ourselves. And so, self-esteem and our trustworthiness of ourselves decreases when we don't keep our own word. One of the ways you can keep your own word is make less agreements. It's not about making perfect agreements all the time, but we have a bad habit sometimes of overcommitting. We say yes to 17 things, and then we can only do 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So why not simply make less agreements? And also be aware of the agreements you make, because people make agreements and forget they made them, and then the people who heard the agreements, who hold them true, get upset with you, and you don't even remember you made the agreement with them. It's that simple in a way, but also that difficult.
Well, I just want to add, make less agreements, and when possible, make smaller agreements.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you say, I'm going to clean the garage, and then you go, oh, shoot, this whole garage, I don't want to do that. So you don't do anything. Clean a portion of it, clean a small area of it, clean out the glove compartment of your car or something, but do it in bite sizes.
Yeah.
You're not overcommitted, and you're not promising to have everything done, So I that, Barry.
But a lot of people get involved in that grandiosity when they're saying things. It's like, I want to say something grandiose so that you're really going to like me.
Exactly.
So that's hard to pull that back sometimes.
Well,
because we want to be a hero,
But can I ask? I want to ask this because I've got all this talent here. I got Barry and Scott and Jones. I'll call you Jonesy like Lynn does because
that's fine. That's fine.
And Bailey and Sasha, and I've got Lynn here. All of us offer value to people, and if you're like me, you got people who come out of the woodwork for you, and they say, "Hey, I'd like to help you. I'd like to do something. I'd like to volunteer. I'd like to whatever." And so then they say, "Oh, I'd love to help you with this, or I'd like to help you with that," and then they don't, or they get part way into it, and then they stop, and something comes up, and then they drop the ball, or I've got people who go. I mean, financial people who go, I'll call you on Wednesday, and then I don't hear from them for a month, and I'm like, I'm a client, I'm a customer, I trust you with money, and you're not returning the call, or you're not calling in a time. It doesn't make me trust you more if I don't hear from you. And my ex-wife, when we were married, used to go, she'd say, this is happening. I say, okay, cool. And she'd go, why aren't you jumping up and down and celebrating? I said, because I've been in Hollywood long enough to go, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm happy that the possibility exists. And when the people follow through on what they say they're going to follow through, you'll watch me jump up and down. But until then, I'm happy that this is an iron in the fire, but it's an iron in the fire. They're not doing it yet.
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean that to be cynical. I mean it to say that you can tell, you know, you can get involved with the same, you know, it's like people who marry the same person over and over and over again. You can
Mhm.
tell that there are people out there who are right there for you as long as they can be, you know, and then they aren't. So
Right.
these are people that you might put your trust in, or you might give them a position, or you might say, "Yeah, I'd love you to help," or you could pay them or whatever, but they just don't follow through. So what do the panel of experts say to people who find themselves in that? It could be their children who do it, it could be their parents who do it, it could be, you know, associates. But what do you say to the people who um, don't do the follow through?
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not talking, say, talk to the people who don't follow through. What do you do with the people who if you were giving me advice, what advice would you give me?
On how to talk to somebody that doesn't follow through?
Sure, whatever
Well,
you take away from my question is, yeah.
Well, I would say, you know, Rex, one of the reasons that I accepted your offer is because you're a tremendously knowledgeable, very inspirational individual. And I just want you to know that I took that very seriously when you offered to do whatever it was you offered to do with me. But I just want to also let you know that you didn't fulfill that. And I understand sometimes things get busy. Not everybody is understanding like that. So for your good, you may want to stay on top of those commitments, whatever they be, and either make less of them or whatever from that side. In other words, I would work to use it as a teaching moment for them.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely. Well said. Well
Thank you.
said.
Well, so I want one more thing though, because I think you said, Rex, that if you keep having that problem, so if somebody out there keeps finding people that they can't trust, there is one thing, yes, checking the side. But the other part is also
beyond the person.
Yeah. So if I'm the person that is finding people who volunteer for me, work for me, don't follow through and don't keep agreements, and I keep having that happen, yes, there's always something in me that I need to look at. But secondly, and well, part of that may be the fact is maybe I see what they could possibly do, not see who they really are.
Yeah.
So for sometimes you got to watch people's actions first before you consider hiring them.
I think
Because-
people love a panacea though. They want the one answer to every problem they have. It's a shortcut. That's why people can sell a book that says, buy this book and it'll make you a millionaire, and you
And it's
don't
like
even have to work for it. And people, and that makes no sense to anybody who's ever worked in the world. It doesn't make any sense. How did they
But
make
it's
their
number
millions?
one
They
selling
sold
book.
They
That's
sold
exactly
books to idiots who want to make $1 million without working. But,
Well, you know,
but
I
the
mean,
people who keep doing that and keep going into these people that snake oil salesmen who say, I can cure everything, I can do everything, I can do all of this, is because they want a shortcut in their life because they're not. So I think, Barry, you're right. You got to look at yourself and say, why am I looking for these shortcuts? Why am I afraid to do the work? Why am I afraid to do the thing that's in front of me? Why do I want to skip down the road to the end and have everything today? So that's really so you got people out there that leaders, politicians take advantage of this in people. They say, I've got all the answers. This is how people lead other people because en masse, people want somebody to come up with all the answers. So we're attracted to that. But that's a personal thing. And once you become somewhat enlightened in your life, you start to say, well, somebody who says they could do everything, obviously to me, could do very little. But Scott, what were you going to say?
well, a couple different things. And anybody who says they can do everything is just flat ass lying. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just, you know, recognize that. And I want to introduce a new concept, quite frankly. If you want to have trust in a relationship, you have to be trustworthy.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's funny because I share the exact same thing in my trainings. You know, people do business with those they know, like, and trust. People date those they know, like, and trust. People marry those they know, like, and trust. People divorce those they don't trust. We can solve the divorce problem in a second. It's trust. Everything about relationships is trust. And so therefore it's all the various things that everybody has said to this point. Scott, you started out beautifully with the 5 foundational pieces there. But what it is being true to your word and knowing. And I'll give you an example, something I do on my calendar. When I share my calendar with somebody to do it, I say, go ahead and pick whatever time works for you. And my commitment is whatever works best for you, and it's on my calendar, I'll show up. And the message that goes out and says you've blocked a 30-minute time. On my calendar, it's actually blocked an hour. Why do I do that? Because anything I give up and beyond the 30 minutes is now an over delivery. So it's set yourself up for success. And, the folks that are just trying to churn and burn every 30 minutes or every fit, I laugh at the people. I absolutely laugh. I want to do a discovery call with you. Go ahead and block 15 minutes of my time because I'm so freaking important and busy. Dude, I won't know your name in 15 minutes. Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to recognize you as an authority. And first of all, that means you're not going to find out anything about me first. And I'm not going to have the time to find out anything about you because we have a 15-minute call. I say, I tell you what, when you get freed up, why don't you reach out if you really want to look at some business together? That stuff is so crazy because the reality is everything. And Lynn heard me share some things in my group last night. And I've got example after example. People ask, how'd you get on the big stages with, 25,000 people and Colin Powell and all that? Well, it was easy. 10 years earlier, I did a favor for somebody at an event. They said, we can't pay you. I said, I never asked to be paid. I know you need the help. 5 years later, they walked into a room that I was speaking in at the Marina Inn in Sarasota, Florida. I said, hey, Richard, how you doing? He goes, you remember me? I said, of course I do. We had that great event 5 years ago. 5 years after that, he was responsible for putting people on those stage. They said, who's the best speaker in the country not speaking on our stage? They all wrote my name down. I was a 10-year overnight sensation. The point is that because you treat people with respect, honor, and dignity all the time, it's not a ploy. It's not a happenstance. It's not a, gosh, I think I can leverage something here. It's you treat them with respect, honor, and dignity. You do the unexpected. You send them a message when they're down. You just say, hey, buddy, how you doing? Haven't heard from you for a long time. When you build trust in those relationships, quite frankly, you don't have to have as much contact continually. Now, I'm not suggesting don't have contact continually. If you can do that, do that. But the stronger and deeper you build the relationships, actually, the more relational capital you have over an extended period of time.
Right.
Lynn heard me say that I got a text from somebody I hadn't talked to in 10 years. And 10 minutes later, we were on a phone call together working on a business opportunity. And I said, why'd you reach out? He said, because I have watched you over these 10 years and I know who you are. That's what it is. People, pretend you are on camera 24/7, 365. Number one, you don't really have to pretend. Pretty much you are.
Oh, yeah.
The reality is act as if you are on camera 24/7, 365. And would you act differently, even if you're by yourself, but you're on camera? Would you act differently than you would if you weren't? And the reality is, again, how you do anything is how you do everything. If you do it consistently enough over time, you will win because they will win.
Joe says, I always do the unexpected, but it's not always well received well. Hint, don't send exotic dancers to any self-help events. Hashtag lesson learned.
Well, somebody doesn't have a sense of humor.
Yeah, I'm obnoxious both on and off camera.
That I
Love
agree.
Joe.
But what you're saying, Scott, is
Love Joe.
being trustworthy isn't a side hustle and it's not a part-time job.
No.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not. It's not part of having a gig. It's being it and doing it, and to that also, and as Barry would point out, it takes two people to develop trust.
Hmm.
I can trust somebody implicitly and they not have any idea that I trust them, or they could trust me and I wouldn't have any idea. We actually have to have some kind of interaction
Right.
to know each other and demonstrate, that we're trustworthy in order to have a trusting relationship. And, apart from that, well, what you just said, Scott, is something in the movie industry. You know who Jason Momoa is?
Yeah.
The actor? Was it Aquaman?
Aquaman.
You know who Sam Rockwell is?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent
Both
actor.
Yeah, both these guys. You look up Jason Momoa. 1999, he starred in Baywatch for 2 seasons, 44 episodes. 2012, he's in the Game of Thrones. He starts to get some recognition. He gets Aquaman. Come on, Bailey, come here. He gets Aquaman, and now he's starring in things, and people know who he is. But that's 24 years that he's been devoted to his craft.
Right.
And what you said is, if you're good and you're consistent, he didn't go, how long will it take me to succeed? Because if he did, he'd have been out of it in a couple of years.
Right.
You have to stay with it. You have to be consistent. But also, Hollywood, literally, it's a small industry in a large area, but it's a small town where everybody pretty much knows each other or knows each other's reputation. They watch, they notice, and people start getting bigger roles and bigger parts and bigger responsibility with your cast or crew, because it's a meritocracy. You demonstrate your worth and your value, your trustworthiness, and if you're and if you get popular where you're a celebrity and you can put seats in a theater, where people will pay to see you, then you're a cash cow for somebody. Sam Rockwell started in 1979, didn't work again until 1988. He was a child actor. 1988 till today. And I forget what year it was, 2012 or 13 or somewhere in there. He did, Confessions of of a Magnificent Mind, or whatever. It was a Chuck Barris book. Chuck Barris was the Gong Show host who claimed he was a CIA spy and wrote a book about it. And Rockwell played Chuck Barris. Didn't you hear him again? He did movie after movie after movie, and then he got an Academy Award nomination, which he won for 3 billboards, in whatever in Texas. And yet today, still a lot of people don't know who he is, but they go, "Oh, that guy," they recognize him because he's a wonderful actor. Again, he's dedicated to it. He's stuck with it, and it took 40 years for him to become a household name. So if your success isn't overnight, you need to know that if you're in it for a short time, like I'll do it for a year, I'll do it for 5 years, and you're not consistent, they're striving to be their best. They're not trying to be shoddy actors. They're trying to, continue. Right. Now, on top of that, here's the one thing that I talk about, because I consult for the movie industry. I've been in the movie industry. Is when somebody's going to hire you to be on a crew, to go on a location, or if you're going to work in Hollywood or you're working in Chicago or wherever, you're going to be working anywhere from a couple of days to maybe many months. They think like this, and it's not a bad way to think if you're hiring people in your business. Would I take this person on a camping trip in Canada for 4 weeks?
That's good.
That's the kind of person I want to have around the campfire. Yeah. Are they friendly? Are they trustworthy? Are they fun? Are they interesting? Are they helpful? Are they, a good colleague, a good friend, somebody to have on this trip, fishing or otherwise? Because, that's essentially what you're doing when you take a job. You're working with other people. If you're working on a film crew, you're working with other people, and hundreds of thousands of dollars are being spent every minute. So they need people that they can count on, who are trustworthy, who deliver, who show up, who don't grumble, who don't, and so it's apropos to apply it to any business you're in, and as well as the relationships. Would I want to take this person on, not just tonight in the hotel room, but would I want to have 10 years of bliss with this person or not? I mean, I think you need to consider who you're getting involved with, and whether it's they're the kind of person you want to be involved with.
Absolutely. I love the analogy of the acting and how you kind of like just stay consistent and it'll happen. And sometimes the measure of success is a little bit different too. Like, I think one of the greatest American actors in my time was Harvey Keitel. I thought he was brilliant. He's the kind of guy who is never going to be like, the top bill. I mean, he got a couple of top bill films, but he was known more for just being in the middle, being the guy in the middle who could walk into a scene. And when you remember that scene, you remember just him almost. Just incredible. But he was consistent. It's that kind of consistency that I can always say every time he walks on the screen, I hold my breath. I'm waiting because Harvey's there. And it was almost like, sure, it's great to reach the top of the acting world or to get your name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which I think he does anyway. But it's great to have all of that. But to have that kind of reputation where when you walk onto a scene, you're expecting this guy to take your breath away because of the consistency. He wasn't trying to be somebody else. He was always still just Harvey Keitel. It was just a brilliant actor. I always, I never got enough credit, I don't think, from the general public. But I think a lot of the people in the industry know how great he was. So
I think a big part of it is if you would just come from a place of leaving people better off for the interaction you've had with them.
Yeah.
And if you do that consistently, it's amazing what happens. You just be nice, be friendly, be goofy, you don't have to manufacture something, an image be who you are, genuine. It's funny in a lot of the sales training I do. The first thing I say is by a show of hands, how many of you like people? If you don't have your hand up right now, leave. Because if you don't like people and you're presenting something to them all the time, you better like all of them. I mean, you don't have to love all of them, but you have to be able to understand people's differences and their quirks and all the different stuff that goes along with it. When you're building trust and relationships, it's about you meeting them where they are a whole heck of a lot more than it's them meeting you where you are. If you want to build that relationship, somebody's got to bring the mortar to it all to get it to stick together. And that's you meeting them where they are.
I want to piggyback on that, if you don't mind.
Please.
There are people who are people, and there are people who are place people, and there are people who are activity people, and there are people who are thing people, and there are people who are information people. In other words, you can tell by watching and listening, observing and interacting with someone whether they like people, value people, want to be around people, because they're going to talk about the people they know, and they're going to name drop, and they're going to went to this party and all these cool people were there, and they're going to want to be around people. There are other people who like places. Like, they don't care if they go on a trip alone or who's on the trip. They just got to be in that place. They got to go to London or Brazil, or they have to go somewhere, but they love the place. How do you get there? Well, you go down to that place and you go over to that place and you go over to that place. And that's how you get there. They describe things and they talk about where they've been and where they're going to go and that kind of thing. There's activities. They love activities. They talk about the sporting events they do, or they help out in this charity, or they take care of these kids, or they do these things. And they talk about all the different kinds of things that they like to do and behave with. And again, you see it by what it's like a primary importance sort. So either people are at the top of the list or places are at the top of the list. Now, we do all of them. It's kind of like you wouldn't be able to drive if you couldn't, see, hear, move, and, do all the things you need to do. So we do all of these, but there are what we would call, kind of a primacy for some of them. Then there are things people. They connect the knickknacks. They have all the things. They're the early adopters, the early adapters. They have all the technology. They love this. They love that, but they have things. And they talk about their things. I have a boat. I have a car. I've got the nicest watch. My clothes are all. They love things. And then there are those people who love information, and they can tell you facts and figures and data and drop stuff about everything. And Abraham Lincoln said that in that year, and so did this. And did you know Julius Caesar was born here? And and all that. And they just love information, and they talk about it. So if you're hiring people and you put an information person in a sales position, that's probably not a good mix, because they're going to be talking information and they're going to have facts and figures and everything else, but they don't care about the person in front of them. To Scott's point, you have to understand that sales is not just about what you're selling and the facts and figures of what you're selling and and all that good stuff. It's about relating to a human being who's interested in fulfilling some need, either solving a problem or accomplishing something, and you're there to be able to help them. And yes, you can use all these other things. You can use the information. You can point out the things that they can do as a result, or the activities and the places and everything else. But you have to be a people person. You have to have a connection with other people to want to assist them in moving forward.
I forgot to send John the invite. Hi, John. Saw yourself. It will follow. Good to see you here.
Well, that's what a relationship is that conversation between two people, whether that's business or personal. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it takes two people to interact, to relate to each other, right? So you've got to have that interaction of some sort. And so if you're going to take the time to work toward building a relationship, it should be a trusting relationships are valued relationships. And so it's when you bring value into the equation, that it becomes important.
Well, and to add to all that, but sometimes it's a common thread, common interest and things in common, and being with the people that are just Zen or whatever, you got to have something in common that's just goes without even saying. You got to have that energy. You got to have that. Go ahead, Rex.
Well, I was just gonna say, you mean like the Egyptian pot smoker, Tutankhamun?
But the thing is, but also that the thing is that some people never move out of their comfort zone. They'll hang out where they grew up. I mean, like I said once, when someone asked me about where I date somebody who grew up where I was living at the time. I said, I've lived on 4 countries. To meet somebody who's never had a passport and hasn't been more than 5 miles away from where they grew up, not very going to be a good match with us. So yes, finding somebody you have common interest with, common connection with is good. Something else that came up, because in the sales conversation, and what you said, Scott, was so key for me. If I drill it down to the bottom line, it's give to give, don't give to get.
Right.
Yeah.
People in business and in relationships oftentimes give to get something back. Mm-hmm. And they feel owed. And the thing is, yes, in a relationship, there should be some sort of, there's a sort of balance going on. But it shouldn't be where you do it to get a result, unless it is to make them feel better. But if you give to give, because I have the same thing as Scott, I have the same thing on my calendar where there's that time of beyond, because I don't say, it's not like I'm a therapist where I go, time's up. We go to it done. And that's the thing about giving, is you give to serve and make a difference. And ideally, especially what you said, Scott, about that longevity, that's the thing I've had to trust a few times, is having that service and that giving come back and pay me sometime down the road without any expectation of when and if it will happen. Because if we do it with a hook on it or a string or a rope on it and trying to pull it back in again, it never lands where it's supposed to go in the first place. Yeah. So you just
that's where that whole concept of high intention, low attachment comes in. Right. The high intention of imparting something good, of doing something good, of serving in some way, and a low attachment as to what that means for either them or for you.
Right.
The more that you can put the intention out there and then release it. And, again, there's so many different concepts and parables that come together with this. If you believe, which I do, God's plan and timing is perfect and all things work together for my good, that means you take and you put everything out there the very best way you possibly can, and you trust that, in fact, the right result will show up at one time. Here's the one thing that I stopped, I used to teach God's plan and timing is perfect, and you can rarely understand it. That's not the way I teach it anymore. I suggest God's plan and timing is perfect, and you can never understand it. So stop trying. And when you do, all of a sudden you're at peace. Yep. It's amazing when you give up the attachment to that end, how you now get at peace, because the comfort is in the plan and timing is perfect, and it's not your timing. So therefore, whenever it does happen, again, that sharing something last night in our group, and And I said, all of a sudden, relationships from treating somebody who, quote unquote, was a worker bee around the seminar business, but I treated him with respect, honor, and dignity. And there came a day where he wasn't just a worker bee. He had influence and power. And he said, I remember that guy when I was a worker bee, treated me like I was an equal. And because of that, he reached out.
I think when people have those expectations of when I do the right thing, I'm going to get this back, and we create these expectations, it becomes very self-serving. Everything we do is self-serving. And when you're self-serving that much, you are not. You're not doing anything for anything else. You're becoming very, very selfish. And I used to do things like that all the time. And I've got clients who go home after years of running through their neighborhoods, robbing their neighbors, beating people up, doing drugs on the street, selling drugs to kids, and they go home clean and sober and they want a parade. And I'm like, why do you want a parade for? For doing what you should have done the whole time? Now you're a nice guy, so you think everybody's going to celebrate that? They're going to look at you and say, you should have been doing this. You don't get praise for that. You do it because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do the right thing and stop looking for that praise. If I go home and I bring her flowers and I think if I bring you flowers, then you're going to, we're going to have fun tonight and it's going to be a great night. The flowers lose their meaning because it's a manipulation for me to get what I want. But if I go home to bring her flowers because I just want to give, like you said, give to give. I just want to give. I would love to see this. Certainly the reward could be something as simple as a small smile or a twinkle or in the eye. And I'm not looking for that anymore. That becomes a big difference. But too many people, when they do something, they're doing it because they're expecting an outcome. They're expecting a return on their investment from people. And that's so selfish to do that. Lynn?
I just want to say real quick, I want to just voice what you said. The intention attached with quick sales shows so much about you, says so much of the fact that you're not looking at your intentions are so wrong. And so I just wanted to agree with that and say that it repels what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
Can I add to what you have said?
Yes.
In show business, first off, you ought to treat all people as if they're going to be the king or queen or president or God or something.
Win the lottery.
Well, whatever it is, because a lot of the people in power, whether they're thought leaders or politicians or religious leaders or whatever, treat their flocks as everybody as peons. They're here for me, but those are the people who will supplant us. Those are the people who, once we're gone, will rise ahead. Your children are going to outlive you, hopefully. And they're going to go on to do whatever they do. So to think less of anyone because of where they are at any time in their life is really, really wrong. So when I consult the movie business, because I did it when I was a teenager, you'd go in and there'd be a receptionist or a secretary in the writing business and in producing. There's a reader who reads the scripts before they go to the producer or the director. And I just thought, well, they're just as a secretary there. So I would be, I'd be pleasant, but I didn't think anything of it. Those are the people who become the producers and directors tomorrow because they're there being groomed to be producers and directors in the industry. And if you don't understand this going into it, you miss great opportunity to form really nice connections with people. But you can't do it just because you want to form the connections with people. You have to do it because you're really interested in them. You have to do it because you care about people. Like you like people, then it's an easy thing. You don't like people, it's a much harder thing. And as someone once said, you can fake everything but sincerity. So if you're BSing someone, they know it. If you're obsequious and you're just trying to get ahead and you're using them as a stepping stone, they're going to feel that too somewhere, subliminally, unconsciously, whatever. They're going to get it, and at some level. But you won't rise as high, by trying to step on the tops of people's heads, to get to where you want, as you will if you uplift everyone and travel together, in a parade where no one is the leader, but everybody is on the journey. So,
well, and I think that's the biggest point is understanding that, this is where I really, and I'm pretty serious about it. You got to learn to love people. There's 8 billion of us here. You might as, it gets easy if you don't have to think about loving people, if it's just who you be, right? If it's just what you are, it takes away a whole lot of stress out of the entire day, because I don't have to go, oh gosh, I got to get myself fired up to meet somebody. You already want to. And so that's one less thing that you have to prep for on a daily basis. So just make the decision to love people, be nice, be kind, respect people. It just makes it a whole lot easier.
Yep.
What's, I'm sorry, but what's really cool about certain people, like entomologists or something, like they love bugs. They love all bugs. They classify them, they categorize them. They do this. They go, this is a poisonous bug, and this is a friendly bug, and this one wreaks havoc on crops, and this one is so. But they love bugs. Well, if you love people and stop categorizing them as good or bad people, or right or wrong, or Republican or Democrat, or Catholic or Protestant, or Jew or whatever, or black or white, or green or yellow or red or whatever, and just love people because they are human. They're the gifts on the planet to you, and you are a gift to them. And if you can understand that and just embrace all of us, regardless of our, we should stop including and excluding and just be together.
One of my exes used to call me a cockroach. Maybe that was a compliment. Maybe it was because she loved
Pretty
bugs.
sure.
Because she loved cockroaches more
Or
than you.
she's just good at describing things.
Oh,
Well, I love every one of you guys, but when you love people and then all of a sudden you keep talking to them and then you really know all the reasons why you love them, it's really cool.
yeah. And Lynn, actually, you're a good example of building trust with people, because you do something that a lot of people don't do. You show up. You show up. You make your best efforts to be where you say you're going to be. You show up. You go to these people's rooms and this person's room, and you.
I haven't been to Rex's in a while.
Well, yeah,
Well,
no,
that is
I wasn't going to bring that up because I didn't want to get Rex upset. Because why do you think he's in jail now? Somebody else didn't show up, and he had to go whack him.
Yeah.
But
anyways,
I have the soap.
It was alleged. It was alleged.
But yeah. But Lynn, I mean, sometimes it's as simple as that. Is you don't have to do anything else, but sometimes just show up. And we don't do that for each other enough. And that's one of the things. That's why there's such a lack of trust, because so many people out there feel alone. And that feeling alone, we never really mentioned the other side of that, when you no longer trust anyone. I mean, we're talking about building trust and being trustworthy, but what about you're the person who you looks out and you just can't find anyone that you trust or believe in? That actually is an inside job as well, but it's a whole different animal there. And it's such a lonely place. I don't know if anybody can address that too. People who are desperately looking for somebody to trust and they just can't find it.
Well, we started at the beginning of the show talking about self-trust.
Yeah.
Those people out there just be looking for someone to trust, they look in the mirror first. I mean, it's always an inside job when it comes to this sort of stuff.
and remember, you can't take things personal. That 4 agreements, you can't take things personal.
Well, not so much. No. It doesn't say you can't. It says
no,
don't.
it doesn't. Yeah, don't take things
There's a
personally.
choice. You can
That's
take,
right.
You can take offense at anything you want. It's your choice.
That's
So
right. You're right.
But the thing I want to say though is that because this is the thing, it's a clue. If you notice everybody around you can't be trusted, one, look in the mirror because it may be you, and secondly, choose different people. That's the challenge we face. Is we often think we've got to put up with an environment because of circumstance, but we can change that environment, and part of it again starts inside. If we start building trust with ourselves, we keep our own agreements, which is one of the foundational pieces, then the people around us. Because the other part also is if we trust ourselves and we keep agreements, people around us who don't will tend to fall away because they can't match it. They don't feel comfortable with that because they don't want to be around people they can rely on. They want to be around people they can't rely on. It's weird that way. But some people are wired because the way they're raised, or the way they've been trained, is that they can't trust anybody, so they won't be trustworthy. So it's about doing the inner work.
Excellent. Well, we're down to about 5 minutes left in the show, and this has been brilliant. I would love to keep going with this. I mean, obviously, every time we get into these conversations, I know it could go on longer, but it's probably good that we all take a break from speaking once in a while and retreat back into our own lives and go back to our own selves. But, if we want to just kind of put a bow on this, and you're building trust in relationships and business, personal, and maybe just maybe as we wrap this up, let's talk about the importance of having this for you personally, the importance of in your life, and this is for all of us personally. I know with me that I have to build trust with the people that I work with, or else I cannot help them. And I cannot do that by manipulating them or by looking at I've got to be that person and show up again consistently and show up as who I am to do that. But I cannot help people that if they don't trust me, there's no way they're going to accept my kind of help. So, how important it is in your lives and what role does it play? And let's just kind of wrap this up this way. Who wants to start off to close us out here?
Rex is going to go first. I just know it. Go ahead, Rex.
Okay, Rex.
Say hi to Ben. Hi, Ben.
Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Love you, Ben. Never underestimate the power of silence and being able to sit with someone and not have to say anything. It isn't always about what we say or talk or any of that. It's about the connection that you have. And some people just need to connect, and they need to connect with other people. And if you can be a helpful presence by just being a presence, that's a good thing.
I love that. Mr. Hipster.
Trust is hard to earn and is easily lost. And the foundation is that you have to earn trust from one another. And the way you keep from losing it is to be a person of your word, to be integrous, be in integrity. Integrity comes from the word integer, one, wholeness. So it really is about that wholeness that you bring to the situations. And, people can then know what to expect. They know who you are. They know your demeanor. They know, you're not going to be too high. You're not going to be too low. You're just going to be you. And that's what it becomes. So again, I don't know why you would want to do all the work to earn the trust, to lose it so easily by being silly and doing something just not that intelligent. If you're able to earn the trust, you should be smart enough to keep the trust.
Drop
like that. I like that. Follow that, Barry.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, if you insist. Actually, I'll take something I said earlier and what Scott said and put it in this way. I mentioned way at the beginning about how one of the ways you build trust is, as you said, keep your word. One of the ways you keep your word is by keeping your agreements. So 3 little reminders if you want to keep agreements. As was said during the conversation, one is make sure you make them important enough to remember them. So write them down, put them somewhere you'll remember them in your calendar, wherever. Second one is make less of them, as we talked about that earlier too, because we tend to overcommit. Make less agreements, you can keep them, people start trusting you. The third one, this is the one that gets scary, is say no more often, because most people are too busy saying yes to everybody to please them, makes them happy because they're seeking approval. If you say no to some people because you're in integrity, that actually will gain more trust, not lose trust. And the last one, and this is the one that comes up because people forget this, is sometimes you got to renegotiate. You said you're going to be there at 4, but you've got another commitment. Say, look, call ahead of time, not at the last minute, and say, I said, no, I said I'll be there at 4. Can we make it 4:30? And then we just say yes. If they can't, you can reschedule. But the fact you reached out proactively means you can build more trust because people know if you can't keep your word, you'll handle it. Right. And these simple things, you do those 4 things, you'll change your life around other people and your trust will increase dramatically.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Please.
Sure. Have any of you or any of the people watching ever had a dream that was so real when you woke up, you went, oh my God, I thought it was real. I mean, I can't believe that was a dream.
When I was younger.
Okay. Well, I mean, most people have. But the point is, how do you know you're not a brick thinking you're a human? It's all a dream. It's all an inside job. There is no outside except that we think there is. When you keep agreements with other people, you're keeping agreements with yourself.
Absolutely.
It's always just one thing, as Scott said a moment ago. It's one thing. So it's with integrity. It is, if you're trustworthy, the other cells in the system will find you trustworthy as well.
Yep.
That's good. And we ran out of time.
I'll tell you what, if people spent more time becoming the person that they're trying to convince everybody else they are, if they spend as much time, you know, I spent so much time trying to convince people I'm this person. If I took that time and spent it on actually becoming that person, that's where the answer lies right there. You know, I don't have to convince you I'm a nice guy if I truly am a nice guy. So you guys be true to yourselves, look in the mirror. And that's what, you know, if you can look in the mirror and trust the person looking back at you, you're well on your way to doing well. So, you know, do things that way. Lynn, wrap us up, babe.
All right. Well, as always, it's an honor to have you guys here. And I always learn so much from you guys. Appreciate you guys. Love you. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Awesome.
Keeping me safe and sound.